to the Big Man Boxing Reflection, and I'm Chris the Big Man. Don't get confused. This is not the 90s. I look like the 90s because I'm using a VHS. It's 2019, as you can see on the screen. Oh, won't we all wish we were in the 90s? Won't we all wish boxing fans, boxers, promoters, everybody had the mentality that they had in the 90s? So that we could have all the fights we wanted. So we could have a unification, to have one name, one face, one champion. So we could have a Thanos, a man with all the rings, a man with all the belts. We need that. We need a one face, one name, one champion. But right now, the guy who has made that statement popular, Deontay Wilder, it looks like he doesn't want that. And the man he claims has been ducking him turns out to be the man who actually wants to unify all the belts. How ironic life can be. So what are we doing today? I'm going to be reflecting on reacting to a video that was put up by Boxing Squad 3 days ago. See, Boxing Squad is one of those guys or voices talking about boxing on YouTube that sees things down the middle, like straight down the middle. Doesn't pick sides. Very realistic in how he views the landscape of boxing. In fact, he's so neutral that when he commented on Wilder ducking the 100 million, or I hear a lot of people saying 100 million, 120. I guess it's the range. If it's 50 million for his fight against Joshua, then it's 120. If it's 40 million for his fight against Joshua, then it's 100 million. Either it's 80-20, 20 for Brazil, 80 for Joshua, or 50-20, or 100-20, 100 for Joshua, 20 for Brazil. So he gave a very blunt reaction this time. It's not normally that definite in how he speaks. He tries to keep things and handle things like a true journalist. He said, and I read. In fact, why read? Let me show you. Let's go there. So he said, Deontay Wilder exposes himself as a hypocrite over the zone deal. Put it as a question. Yeah, that's the Dawson there, Deontay Wilder. So he's a very honest guy, very neutral guy, very level-headed guy, an intelligent guy. I'm talking of Boxing Squad, not Deontay Wilder. So I was surprised by the title of his video. What does this show me? It shows me that he's frustrated. People like him are frustrated that we're not having the fight. People like Hartman Strikes Back, a guy who's also very neutral, frustrated also. If I play this audio, let me set the record straight. Personally, I have nothing against Deontay Wilder. Great guy, great man. Partly Nigerian also. He has some Nigerian in his blood. And anybody who has Nigerian in their blood, like at least 50% of black people around the world, including America, I can understand you, I can relate with you. I respect the fact that he went into boxing to raise money to take care of his daughter who was going through a spinal who had a spinal issue. I respect that. I respect the fact that finally Wilder decided to step up the quality of opposition he has been having in the ring with him. Finally, in his last two fights against Fury and Ortiz, he finally faced quality top 10 heavyweight boxers. Do I respect his previous 30-something fights? Not really. Because we know what he has been doing. Which is probably and most likely why he has remained unknown for so long in America. But now everybody's recognizing him because he's finally facing good fighters. That makes sense. If you face good fighters, people will know you. If you go into fights that potentially you could lose, that are closer to 50-50, people would know you. But if you keep facing every bomb they throw in there with you, if you keep facing people who wash plates in restaurants by day and fight by night, if you keep facing people who drive taxis by day and fight by night, if you keep facing people who do construction day jobs and go into the gym to train for fights by night, no one will respect you. And that's what Wilder has been doing, which is a contrast to Joshua, who actually stepped up very early in his career. I think I would say Joshua stepped up when he faced Kevin Johnson, a guy who went 12 rounds with one of the Klitschko's. I would say that was Joshua's step-up fight. Because if you actually think Kevin Johnson is crap, look at what happened to every other prospect he has stepped into the ring with. Daniel Dubois. He went 12 rounds with Daniel Dubois. And the other British guy who Daniel Dubois will face very soon. But at the end of the day, Wilder stepped up. As the saying goes, it's better late than never. It's good that he didn't go through his whole career fighting bombs. He finally stepped up and faced quality opposition. So I respect him for that. But my major frustration with Wilder and his fan base is the double standards. I don't really have any problem with Wilder as a person. He's American and Americans are who they are. He's from Alabama and Alabama is Alabama. It is what it is. But the frustration I have is the double standards. And what do I mean by this? Wilder and his fanboys would criticize Joshua for doing something, and then they would turn around and do the same thing. That doesn't make sense. Sometimes I wonder if they actually engage in critical thinking exercises. I wonder if they have critical thinking skills, because if they do, they would realize that many of the things they criticized and hated on Joshua for, they're doing the same thing. For example, Wilder and his fanboys criticized Joshua for facing aged fighters, old fighters in the form of Klitschko, Vladimir Klitschko, and Alexander Povetkin, Sasha Povetkin. But then Wilder turns around and faces Luis Ortiz, who is probably older than both Klitschko's, including Vitaly Klitschko. And Vitaly Klitschko is retired. Luis Ortiz is probably older than Vitaly Klitschko. And then Wilder and his fanboys keep quiet. They pretend as if Luis Ortiz is the best heavyweight currently. They pretend as if Luis Ortiz is the boogeyman, an old man with a weak heart, with heart conditions, high blood pressure, a man who medical doctors were considering pulling out of the fight against Wilder on fight night because of his blood pressure. They had to bring in Charles Martins as a backup in case Luis Ortiz was deemed not fit enough to fight. That's the guy that Wilder defeated. That's the old Ortiz that Wilder defeated. That is fanboys are giving him any credit for. But then they turn around and hate on Joshua for facing Klitschko. They criticized Joshua for facing Klitschko. They said Klitschko was inactive, coming off, is it 2 years layoff? That sounds very familiar. Tyson Fury. We all know that when Klitschko isn't fighting, he's not stuffing his mouth with food. Klitschko still remains in optimum fight weight. Klitschko doesn't balloon to 300 pounds. You can still see his Adonis belt. You can still see his abs. You can still see he still goes into the gym to work out in retirement. So Joshua was facing an old Klitschko, but a Klitschko that kept himself in good shape. And I am of the opinion that Joshua faced the best Klitschko ever, because the Klitschko Joshua faced was more offensive than the Klitschko that snoozed the whole world to sleep. The Klitschko that made the heavyweight division unpopular wasn't the same Klitschko that stepped into the ring with Joshua. The obsessed Klitschko stepped into the ring with Joshua. But they criticized Joshua for that. But then Wilder tried to capitalize on facing a Tyson Fury who was 3 years out of the ring. A Tyson Fury who was 300 and something pounds, chubby giant dude. A Tyson Fury who was coked up on drugs. A Tyson Fury who was on the brink of suicide, suffering from depression. That is the inactive fighter Wilder faced. Compare that Fury to the inactive Klitschko that Joshua faced. But yet somehow Joshua gets criticized and Wilder gets praised. Let's hear what Boxing Squared is going to say about this. Let's listen. Enjoy the show.
Let's go. So the Boxing Voice talking to Wilder with Patreon questions. A patron asked the question of Wilder. You mentioned the reason you turned down a $100 million deal with DAZN was because it wasn't disclosed to you what AJ was getting. However, you offered a supposed $50 million to AJ, but you didn't disclose what you were earning to AJ's team as well. Does that sound a bit hypocritical?
That is a very smart patron. That individual asked a question that the media, the boxing media press, were not courageous enough to ask Wilder. Fresh off the 100 million or 120 million doc, he did the week before. The Tuesday of his press conference announcing, it was supposed to be the big announcement. No press member was courageous enough to ask Wilder this question that this patron is asking right now. Why is that? Maybe because this patron is not afraid of any repercussions. He's the one paying to have this TBV channel running. He's a patron. He's paying his $5, $10 to have Vesto Gibbs be able to travel to Alabama to cover Wilder's training camp. Whereas the media personnel, they are afraid of losing their media credentials to Wilder's press conferences, to Wilder's fights. Make sense?
No, it don't. Because with that deal, it's...
Now, don't get this confused. Everything you're hearing is the boxing squad reading out the conversation that took place. So right now he's reading out what Wilder said in response.
Self-explanatory, what we was offering AJ. He was going to get the 50 up front, guaranteed. Of course, everything else is going to be split down the middle. He, out of the amount we anticipated was going to be made or whatever, we gave him 50% up front. The difference between me and Joshua was asking for 50 million. He said that out of his damn mouth. So, and he declined. He didn't take it. We called his bluff and he didn't.
I'm honest enough to respect that. Wilder and his team, I respect them. Wilder is not the sharpest tool in the shed. It's one of the bluntest. Trust me. But he has a very smart and cunning team. The team he has behind him, they're very dishonest people, but they're smart. They're very smart. They know how to take advantage of the media. They know how to take advantage of casual fans. They know how to make themselves look good. They're smart people. So, yeah, I respect what they did. They called Joshua's bluff. Joshua made a mistake. Joshua should not have come out to the press on IFL TV and said that. That was a big mistake. And even if you're going to say that, you should have been smart enough to mention a very huge number. If Joshua had said 100 million and Wilder had called his bluff and offered Joshua 100 million, that would have been a good 100 million to pocket. But then you said 50. The risk of losing all the advantages you have, and I'm talking of Joshua, 50 million is not worth that, because you already make 50 million per fight. When you add everything that Joshua makes from a fight, endorsements, plus his fight purse, which is in the range of 20s and 30s, plus every other profit he makes, souvenirs and everything, Joshua probably makes close to 50 million already. So 50 million was not worth losing your home advantage, breaking your contract with Sky Sports, and that's something that could have legal repercussions. 50 million was not worth it. For someone who was making 5 million per fight, for someone who was making 1.5 million per fight, someone like Wilder, 50 million seemed like it was worth it. But to Joshua, no. So Joshua should have mentioned a huger sum of money, or not said anything at all. Joshua underestimated Wilder, and that came back to bite him.
Want to take it. You know, that's the difference. I ain't asking for nothing. They want me on this particular thing for a particular reason, for that particular reason. Before we can do business, everything must be exposed. Everything must be on the table. Ain't no way in hell you're going into a deal not knowing the information, not knowing what's coming behind it, what's going for it, the small fine print. That would be a stupid businessman, and I'm far from dumb.
I agree with you, Wilder. Only a stupid businessman would agree to a contract without knowing, for a big fight, without knowing all the details of that fight. So, do I respect you for wanting to know what Joshua made? As a fan, I'm angry because we're not getting the fight. But if I was on your team, if I was your manager, I would want to know what Joshua is going to make for that fight. Of course I would. But I'll be realistic to know that I have done the same thing also. I'll be smart enough to know that I can't accuse Joshua of doing something and then do the same thing. So, if you're smart enough not to accept that 100 million or 120 million deal from the zone, not from Joshua, not from Eddie Hearn, or because you didn't know what Joshua was going to make for that fight, then why would you be angry at Joshua for refusing to accept your 50 million without details? Why would you criticize Joshua for doing what you're doing right now. You even made it worse. You did everything in your power. I'm talking of Wilder, Shelley Winkle, and his team. You did everything in your power to make sure Joshua couldn't take that fight. First of all, you took the money from the wrong source. Beating Sports were not willing to give away 50 million to have the fight take place on Sky Sports, Showtime, PBC, and be left out of the picture. If they were going to bring out the 50 million for Joshua, they wanted to have rights. They wanted Joshua to relinquish his fight rights. And Joshua had just re-upped his deal with Sky Sports. And Joshua is not just a fighter who has a deal with Sky Sports. It's an ambassador for Sky Sports. So you picked money from the wrong source. I thought you had money. I thought Al Haymon had all the money. Maybe Al Haymon is not willing to risk his money on you because you don't have that value, Wilder. So you made it impossible by picking up money from the wrong bank. Then you made it impossible by giving little or no time, 24 hours, for Joshua to accept that deal. Then you made it further impossible by not sending a contract. Not only that, you refused to meet. You refused to pick calls. You refused to respond to emails. So you made it impossible for Joshua to accept your 50 million. So Joshua had every right not to accept that deal. But what did DAZN do? DAZN try to make everything possible for you to accept that fight. They accepted to meet with you without Eddie Hearn, a man you claim you can't stand. They accepted to meet with you without Anthony Joshua being involved, without Eddie Hearn being involved. That should have made things easier. You got Shelley Winkle there with you. You got Al Haymon there with you. You had Lou DiBella there with you. They offered you not just a fight you were going to take. They offered you 20 million for Brazil. Then they offered you a unification against Joshua. Lose or draw. They offered you an opportunity to get a rematch and make more money. And then you refused. But then no one is on your side of the fence is honest enough to take note of all that. But really they always try and turn it against Joshua. I'm done. We need the 90s back. Because what is happening now is the worst nightmare for any fight fan. Not to be able to get the fight you want. And not just because you're not getting the fight you want. Because you know that any moment just takes one punch and this super fight is done. Either of these fighters could lose their all, and then the magnitude of this fight just goes down. It's sad. It's sad. That's all from me. Chris the Big Man is done. If you like this video, up. If you dislike this video, I'll gladly take you down. Comment, like, subscribe, or not subscribe. It doesn't matter either way. I'm doing this for me. For so long I've had to listen to garbage, to lies, to BS from so many YouTube channels out there. I'm happy I have the opportunity to express my thoughts, express my words. And I'm going to be shouting out Bruce fucking Vane for inspiring me. Because of Bruce Vane, I was inspired to say, hey, I can do this also. I can put my voice out there. I can speak out my thoughts about the situation. Not for likes, not for subscription, but for me. And that's it and that's that. Have a good day, people. Remember to live full and die empty. Once again, this is Big Man Boxing Reflections. Have a blessed day. Good night.